brooding cowboy forced to marry the sheriff's widow. Their first kiss ignited the silent plains. The wind blew across the silent plains of Novaterra, carrying golden dust that sparkled under the twin suns. Endless waves of tall, thin grass stretched to the horizon, whispering secrets as they bent and swayed. In the distance, jagged cliffs cut the sky like broken teeth, and the settlement of Red Haven lay quietly in their shadow. Life on Novaterra was not easy. The soil was stubborn, the winds fierce, and water was always scarce. Yet humanity persisted here, stubborn as the hardy grass beneath their feet. Jace Calder rode slowly into Red Haven, his coat flapping in the wind. The black hat he wore shaded his eyes, but it did little to hide the brooding lines of his face. For years, he had roamed the outer plains alone, raising genetically engineered herds of plains hoppers, creatures as large as cattle but gentle and strong. He knew the land better than anyone, but he also knew how lonely it could be. The council had summoned him, not for his skill, not for his courage, but for a matter that weighed heavily on the settlement. The widow of their late sheriff needed protection, guidance, and stability. And for reasons that had more to do with custom than law, Jace Calder was to provide it. Alara Finn had been the sheriff's partner for many years. When her husband died under mysterious circumstances, the council feared the young settlement might falter without a strong figure leading it. They believed that Jace, with his skill and reputation, could be that figure. By marrying Alara, Jace did not want to marry anyone. The thought of tethering himself to a life in Red Haven made the muscles in his jaw tighten. But he also understood the unspoken truth. To refuse the council outright could alienate him from the very land he loved. And so, with a slow exhale, he dismounted at the edge of the settlement. The streets of Red Haven were quiet, save for a few children playing near the water domes. Dust curled around their ankles as they ran. Jace noticed the buildings, simple structures built from reinforced metal and local stone, with solar panels angled toward the twin suns. Technology here was functional, never flashy. Survival required efficiency, not beauty. Alara stood outside the main council hall, staring at the horizon. Her auburn hair was pulled back neatly, though a few loose strands caught in the wind. Her eyes, sharp and thoughtful, followed the movement of the plains. She had not yet noticed Jace as he approached. When she finally turned, their eyes met. For a moment, the wind seemed to pause. Jace's mouth formed a thin line, and Alara's heart skipped a beat, not from fear but from curiosity. Here was a man who had seen more of the world than she could imagine, a man whose silence held weight, whose presence filled space. "Jace Calder?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension that hummed in the air. "That's me," he replied, his voice low but calm. "And you must be Alara Finn," her lips pressed together, holding back a small smile. "I suppose the council has told you why you're here." He nodded. "I have an idea, but I want to hear it from you." Alara gestured for him to follow her. They walked together through the settlement, the crunch of gravel under their boots the only sound between them. As they walked, she spoke of her husband, of the challenges Red Haven faced, and of the people who relied on them both. Jace listened, quietly absorbing every detail, every worry, every hope. "The council wants stability," Alara said finally. "They believe a marriage between us, well, they believe it will bring it." Jace stopped and looked at her, the wind tugging at the edges of his coat. "Marriage isn't a simple thing, Alara. I've lived alone for years. I know what solitude teaches you, and it's hard to just let someone into your life." Alara studied him, her gaze steady. "And yet, sometimes, the people who need us the most can teach us the hardest lessons." They walked on, the plain stretching endless and silent before them. The golden grass shimmered under the suns, like waves of liquid light. The wind whispered, carrying the faint scent of wild herbs and metal from the settlement's workshop. Jace felt a strange tug in his chest, a feeling he had not recognized for many years. By the time they reached her home, a small, sturdy structure with a garden of edible plants and a few solar panels. Jace understood that his life was about to change. The air was filled with the quiet hum of machinery, the soft buzz of the twin suns overhead, and the steady rhythm of civilization pushing back against the wild plains. Inside, the home smelled of herbs, fresh bread, and the faint lingering scent of the sheriff, now gone but not forgotten. Alara gestured toward a small table. "Sit," she said. "I'll fetch some water." Jace sat, his hands resting on his knees. The room was warm, simple, and functional, like everything else on Novaterra. He noticed the careful placement of objects. Tools hung neatly on the wall, books stacked by size, small artifacts from off-world settlements. Someone had cared deeply about order here, about making life easier, safer, better. Alara returned with a jug of water and 2 cups. She poured, handing one to him. Their fingers brushed. A spark, small but undeniable, passed between them. Jace looked down, clearing his throat. "Red Haven, it's a hard place," he said. "You've done well to keep it standing." Alara's eyes softened. "I do what I can, but sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough." Jace considered her words. "You're stronger than you think. That's something I can respect." For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the hum of life outside. The plains seemed endless, a golden ocean that neither of them could fully tame. Yet in that moment, Jace felt the faint stirrings of something new, a possibility. Alara broke the silence. "I know the Council's plan is unusual, and I know you may not want it, but if we try, if we really try, perhaps we can find something that works for both of us." Jace's gaze met hers. The wind from the open window stirred her hair, brushing against his hand. He felt an unfamiliar warmth, a sense of connection that went beyond duty or obligation. "I'm willing to try," he said finally. Alara's lips curved into a small smile. "Then we start there." Outside, the plains stretched to the horizon, silent but alive. The twin suns began their descent, casting long shadows across the golden waves of grass. Somewhere in the distance, a herd of plains hoppers moved as one, their steps echoing in the vast emptiness. Jace thought of the creatures he had raised, creatures that thrived only through care, understanding, and patience. Perhaps people, too, could learn the same lessons. That evening, as the twin suns dipped below the cliffs and the first stars appeared in the Novaterran sky, Jace and Alara walked to the edge of the settlement. The wind tugged at their coats, whispering secrets of the plains. "Do you ever think about leaving?" Alara asked softly. Jace shook his head. "This place, it grows on you. Hard as it is, it's home." Alara nodded. "Home, yes, I think I like that word." For a moment they stood in silence, watching the horizon. Then, as if drawn together by the vastness of the plains, they moved closer. Their hands touched again, more deliberately this time, fingers intertwining. It was a quiet, unspoken promise, not of love, not yet, but of willingness to face the unknown together. The wind swirled around them, carrying the faint scent of herbs, dust, and possibility. Somewhere far away, a plains hopper called out, a high, melodic sound that echoed across the plains. It was a reminder that life on Novaterra continued, stubborn, resilient, and beautiful. Jace felt a strange sense of peace. He did not yet know what the future held or if the Council's plan would succeed. But for the first time in years, he felt the pull of connection, of responsibility not just to himself, but to another. Alara looked up at him, eyes reflecting the twin suns now fading into dusk. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we learn to live together, we learn to survive, and maybe we learn to trust." Jace nodded. "Tomorrow," he agreed. And so, on the silent plains of Novaterra, under a sky of gold and violet, a brooding cowboy and a sheriff's widow took their first steps toward an unexpected partnership. The plains were endless, wild, and unforgiving, but for the first time, both of them felt that perhaps, together, they could endure anything. The morning sun rose over the silent plains of Novaterra, spilling golden light across the endless waves of grass. The twin suns of the planet hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that moved with the wind. Jace Calder awoke early, as was his habit, and stepped outside. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of wild herbs and the metallic tang of the settlement's machinery. Alara Finn had already begun her morning rounds. She moved through her small garden, checking the moisture of the soil, inspecting each plant carefully, and adjusting small water conduits to ensure nothing went dry. She glanced up when she heard Jace's boots crunch on the gravel, and for a brief moment their eyes met. The sunlight caught his dark hair and the shadow of his hat, and she noticed again the quiet strength in him. "Morning," Jace said, his voice low but steady. "Morning," Alara replied, brushing her hands on her apron. "Ready for your first lesson?" Jace raised an eyebrow. "Depends. Are you teaching me how to farm or how to survive out here?" She laughed softly, the sound warm against the chill morning air. "Both. And I expect you to pay attention. I've heard stories about how stubborn you are." Jace smirked. "Stories exaggerate." They walked together toward the plains, leaving Red Haven behind. The wind tugged at their coats, and the golden grass swayed like an ocean under the suns. Jace had always loved the open plains, the feeling of endless space, and the sense that anything was possible if you were careful and patient. He had trained the plains hoppers to move across the grasslands, teaching them to follow paths and avoid dangers. Today he would teach Alara. The first challenge was simple yet essential. Jace led her to a small herd of plains hoppers grazing near a stream. The creatures were enormous, their legs long and strong, but their eyes were gentle. They had been bred to survive the harsh conditions of Novaterra, and Jace had raised them from hatchlings. "Watch closely," he said, kneeling beside one of the hoppers. "These creatures respond to calm energy. Speak softly, move slowly. Never let fear or anger show. The moment you do, they'll sense it and they'll run." Alara nodded, studying the hopper carefully. "I understand." "Good," Jace said. "Now let's see if you can guide them toward the water without startling them." She stepped forward cautiously, her hands outstretched. At first the hoppers eyed her warily, shifting their weight and snorting softly. Alara took a deep breath, remembering Jace's instructions, and moved slowly, guiding the largest hopper toward the stream. Bit by bit her confidence grew, and soon she was moving the entire herd, a faint smile of triumph on her face. Jace watched silently, impressed despite himself. "Not bad," he said, his voice carrying a rare note of approval. Alara looked up at him, her eyes bright. "I'm learning from the best." He shook his head with a small smile. "Just remember, the plains are bigger than any of us. Respect it and it'll respect you." For the rest of the morning they moved through the plains together, Jace teaching her how to track animal paths, read the wind, and find hidden water sources. Alara, in turn, shared her knowledge of the settlement, how to maintain the water domes, how to repair the solar panels, and how to organize the crops efficiently. By midday, the sun hung high, its twin reflected light casting a golden shimmer across the grass. Jace and Alara stopped at a small rise, overlooking a valley where the herds grazed peacefully. "You're a fast learner," Jace said, leaning on his knees. "Most people would struggle out here for weeks before they understood the basics." Alara wiped sweat from her brow. "It helps to have a patient teacher, and someone who knows the land like you do." Jace's eyes softened, and he turned his gaze toward the horizon. "It's not easy living on Novaterra. Every day is a challenge, but it's beautiful too if you're willing to see it that way." Alara nodded. "I think I understand. The land teaches you patience, strength, and respect." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden gust of wind that swept across the plains, carrying clouds of golden dust. The grass bent and swayed violently, and in the distance dark shapes appeared on the horizon. A sandstorm was forming, fast and unpredictable. Jace straightened immediately, his calm demeanor giving way to alertness. "That's a fast-moving storm. We need to get the herd and ourselves to shelter before it hits." Alara's heart raced. She had faced many challenges alone, but with Jace at her side, she felt both fear and determination. Together, they moved quickly, guiding the plane's hoppers toward a natural depression in the land where they had previously built temporary shelters. The wind howled, but they worked as a team, moving with efficiency and precision. The storm hit with full force just as the last hopper was safely inside the shelter. Outside, the plane seemed to rage with power, waves of dust and debris swirling in chaotic patterns. Yet inside, the shelter was calm, a haven carved from necessity and foresight. Alara and Jace sat side by side, their bodies close for warmth, listening to the storm's fury outside. Neither spoke for a while, each lost in thought. Finally, Alara broke the silence. "Thank you," she said softly, "for guiding the herd and for staying calm." Jace looked at her, his eyes reflecting the muted light filtering through the shelter. "We survive out here by staying calm. Panic helps no one. That goes for both humans and hoppers." Alara smiled faintly. "I think I'm learning more than I expected. Not just about the planes, but about patience and teamwork and trust." Jace's gaze lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary. "Trust," he repeated. "It's hard to give, but necessary. You've got it." The storm raged for hours, yet inside the shelter there was warmth, safety, and an unspoken bond forming between them. Jace taught Alara how to listen to the wind, how to anticipate changes in the plains, and how to think ahead. Alara shared her ideas for improving the settlement's defenses against natural disasters. They talked about their hopes, their fears, and the strange beauty of Novaterra. As night fell, the storm began to subside. The twin moons rose, casting pale light across the plains, and the golden grass glimmered faintly under their glow. Outside, the air smelled of damp earth and clean rain, the storm having washed away the dust and left the plains looking renewed, alive. Jace and Alara stepped out of the shelter together. The plains stretched endlessly before them, shimmering silver under the moon's light. The herds were calm, grazing quietly, their forms outlined against the horizon. "Tomorrow," Jace said, his voice low, "we return to the settlement. We'll repair what the storm damaged and we'll make Red Haven stronger than before." Alara looked at him, a faint blush warming her cheeks. I look forward to tomorrow." For a long moment they stood side by side, watching the silent plains. Then, slowly, Jace reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Alara's face. Their eyes met, and for the first time there was no hesitation. A soft, gentle kiss brushed across their lips, a kiss of trust, of connection, of the promise that they would face the challenges of the silent plains together. Pulling back, they smiled at one another, the moons reflecting in their eyes. There were no words needed. The kiss had said everything. They were partners now, learning, surviving, and discovering together. The silent plains stretched on endlessly, golden and silver under the twin suns and moons. The storm had passed, leaving life renewed, and with it, the spark of something new had taken root between Jace and Alara. The plains were wild and unpredictable, yet in their presence, the two had found a sense of order, trust, and a quiet joy that had been absent for too long. As they returned to Red Haven under the gentle light of the moons, both understood that life on Novaterra would never be easy. Yet together, they could face anything the silent plains threw at them. And so their partnership grew, their hearts slowly opening, their bond deepening with each shared lesson and every challenge overcome. Tomorrow would bring more work, more learning, and more discovery. But tonight, under the moon's soft glow, Jace and Alara simply stood together, ready to face the plains, ready to face life, and ready to trust in each other. The morning sun rose softly over Red Haven, casting pale light across the settlement. The twin suns of Novaterra were still low, bathing the golden plains in a warm, honey-colored glow. The plains themselves seemed calm after the storm, the tall grasses bending gently in the early breeze. Jace Calder stepped outside, breathing in the crisp air. "Morning," Alara called from the edge of the settlement. She was standing near one of the sensor towers, her auburn hair catching the light. "Have you seen this?" Jace approached, curious. "Seen what?" Alara gestured toward a display on the tower's console. Lines and graphs blinked, showing readings that neither of them had seen before. Strange spikes appeared on the energy monitors, sudden fluctuations in power, unlike anything the settlement's machinery would produce naturally. "What?" Jace murmured, leaning closer. He frowned. "These readings aren't from our systems, nor from the planes. Something else is out there." Alara's eyes narrowed. "Could it be another settlement or some kind of natural energy fluctuation?" Jace shook his head. "Nothing we know matches this. And if it's an energy surge, it's precise, too precise to be natural." They both stood in silence, watching the lines flicker. The readings pulsed rhythmically, almost like a message. For a moment, the winds whispered through the grasses, carrying an eerie melody. "It's communicating," Alara said slowly. "Or trying to. I think it's a signal." Jace rubbed his chin. "Then we need to understand it before it becomes a problem, or before we miss what it's trying to tell us." Together, they worked through the morning, analyzing the readings. They compared the fluctuations to known patterns in nature, wind gusts, magnetic shifts, even the behavior of the plane's hoppers, but nothing matched. It was unlike anything they had seen on Novaterra. Alara leaned back, exhaling slowly. "It's beautiful in a way, a pattern. Like music, but not quite, almost alive." Jace nodded. "Alive, maybe, or intelligent. Either way, we can't ignore it." By midday, the settlement's council had gathered to hear what Jace and Alara had discovered. The people of Red Haven were curious but cautious, aware that strange signals in the plains could mean danger. Jace and Alara explained their findings carefully, showing the energy spikes and their rhythmic patterns. "This isn't just a storm or natural event," Jace told the council. "It's deliberate. Something or someone is sending these signals, and we need to understand them before they affect the planes or us." A young engineer named Kira stepped forward. "Do we have the technology to decode it?" Alara smiled faintly. "We do if we work together, but it will take cooperation, patience, and a lot of careful observation. And we have to act quickly. The patterns are growing more frequent." The council agreed, giving them permission to set up a temporary observation station on a small rise outside the settlement. Jace and Alara worked together, assembling equipment, calibrating sensors, and plotting the energy readings across the plains. The sun beat down and the wind tugged at their coats, but neither noticed the fatigue. Both were focused, driven by curiosity and necessity. For hours they observed, recorded, and analyzed. The signals pulsed in a sequence, almost like a language. Jace noticed subtle repetitions in the patterns, numbers, shapes, intervals that suggested intent. Alara worked beside him, her mind mapping the energy spikes into a visual representation, turning the strange rhythms into shapes and lines that could be understood. "This is incredible," Alara said, tracing a line on the display. "It's like the planes themselves are speaking or guiding us." Jace nodded, eyes narrowed. "We need to figure out the message. If it's a warning, we have to respond correctly. And if it's guidance, well, we can't ignore it." As the twin suns began their descent, the readings became sharper, more insistent. Jace and Alara realized the signal was pointing to a particular section of the plains, a place the settlement had avoided for years, known for sudden terrain shifts and unusual magnetic readings. "Tomorrow," Jace said, "we go there, carefully. We observe and we record. No rash moves. This could be the first real communication we've ever had with something beyond the settlement." Alara nodded. "And together, always together." That night, the settlement rested quietly under the moons. Jace and Alara stood on the edge of Red Haven, watching the plains shimmer under the twin moons' glow. The herds of plains hoppers grazed peacefully, unaware of the signals that pulsed beneath the surface. "I've never felt anything like this," Alara said softly. The plains, it feels alive in a new way. Jace turned toward her, his dark eyes reflecting the moon's light. It does, and it feels like we're part of it, not in charge but part of it. Alara smiled faintly, leaning slightly toward him. Part of it together. Jace placed a hand over hers. Together. The next morning they prepared for the journey. Jace packed tools, sensor devices, and supplies. Alara brought communication devices, data tablets, and careful notes. The plain stretched before them, endless and golden under the twin suns. Their journey was slow, methodical. They moved carefully, observing the land and noting subtle changes, shifts in magnetic fields, unusual plant growth, and patterns in the movement of the plane's hoppers. The signals guided them, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat beneath the ground. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a valley unlike any they had seen before. The grasses here were silvered, shimmering unnaturally in the sunlight. Strange crystalline formations jutted from the ground, reflecting light in shifting patterns. The air vibrated faintly with energy. "This is it," Jace said, "the source of the signals." Alara stepped closer, awed. "It's beautiful, alive almost, but not dangerous. I think it wants something from us, or wants us to notice it." They set up the sensors, mapping the valley and the crystalline formations. The energy readings spiked as they worked, pulses aligning with the shapes in the crystals. Slowly, a pattern emerged, an unmistakable sequence that suggested intent, almost like words written in light and sound. Alara's fingers danced over the controls, translating the signals into shapes on the screen. "It's directions. It wants us to understand something. Look at the formations and match them with the readings. There's a logic here, a method." Jace nodded, kneeling beside her. "We've seen patterns like this in the plains hoppers. You guide them, follow the rhythms, anticipate their needs. It's like the land is teaching us the same way." For hours, they worked side by side, deciphering the patterns and connecting the crystalline formations to the signals. The suns began to descend, casting long shadows across the valley. Slowly, a coherent map emerged, a path through the plains that would lead to a previously undiscovered water source, rich soil, and a safe corridor for the settlement. Alara looked at Jace, her eyes wide. This could save Red Haven. It's like the plains itself is showing us how to survive." Jace's lips curved into a rare smile. "And we listened, together. That's the key." The sun set and the twin moons rose, bathing the valley in silver light. The crystalline formations glimmered, pulsing faintly with energy as if acknowledging their efforts. Jace and Alara stood together, hands brushing once more, hearts filled with awe and hope. "We did it," Alara said softly. "We understood it," Jace nodded. "We did. And the settlement will thrive because of it. But tomorrow, we take this knowledge back and we share it, carefully. The plains have given us guidance, but it's up to us to use it wisely." As they packed their equipment for the return journey, a faint hum lingered in the air. The plains seemed alive, whispering secrets, singing in rhythms they had only just begun to understand. Jace glanced at Alara. "Do you ever think," he asked, "that the universe has a way of testing us? Not with violence, but with challenges that require thought, patience, and cooperation?" Alara smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I do now, and I think we passed this one, together." The twin moons hung low, silver light reflecting in the crystal formations. The plain stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, silent yet alive, waiting for humanity to learn its lessons. Jace and Alara descended the ridge, hearts light with accomplishment, minds buzzing with plans, and spirits united by trust, curiosity, and a shared sense of purpose. Red Haven awaited, its people unaware of the discoveries that could change their lives forever. And Jace and Alara knew, as they returned, that the silent plains were not just a challenge. They were a teacher, a guide, and a reminder of humanity's ingenuity and resilience. The morning sun rose over Red Haven, spilling soft golden light across the settlement. The twin suns of Novaterra cast long, warm shadows over the small buildings and water domes. The plains outside shimmered faintly, still vibrating from the energy of the crystalline formations that Jace and Alara had discovered. Inside the main hall, the council had gathered. Their faces were lined with curiosity and cautious excitement. News of the mysterious signals and the path they revealed had reached the settlement, but few had seen it firsthand. Jace and Alara stood before them, maps and devices spread across a table. "We've studied the signals carefully," Jace began, "and they show us something important, a way to protect and improve Red Haven." Alara stepped forward, pointing to a holographic map projected above the table. "The plains are alive with patterns. These crystals and energy readings are not dangerous. They're guidance. If we follow them, we can find new water sources, fertile soil, and safe paths for our livestock." The council murmured among themselves. One elder, a wise woman named Mara, leaned forward. "And you trust these patterns?" Jace met her gaze. "Yes, but it's not about trust alone. It's about observation, understanding, and careful action. The plains teach us if we listen." Alara added, "We need cooperation from everyone. The journey is not dangerous, but we must work together, share knowledge, skills, and attention. If we succeed, Red Haven will thrive like never before." The council agreed to implement the plan. Jace and Alara began organizing teams, assigning tasks to those with strengths in engineering, farming, and animal care. Kira, the young engineer, oversaw equipment placement, while Mara guided the agricultural team to prepare the fields for expansion. As preparations began, Jace and Alara worked side by side, moving across Red Haven with a quiet efficiency. They inspected water domes, repaired damaged solar panels, and coordinated with the plains hopper herders to ensure the animals would be ready for the new routes. The townspeople watched them with growing admiration. Here were two leaders combining intelligence, skill, and calm determination. They were not warriors, not rulers demanding obedience, but problem solvers, teachers, and partners. During a break, Jace and Alara walked to the edge of the settlement. The plains stretched endlessly before them, golden waves shimmering under the suns. "You know," Alara said softly, "I never imagined I would be doing something like this. Guiding the settlement, solving mysteries of the plains, all while learning from you." Jace smiled faintly. "And I never imagined I would be teaching someone as skilled and clever as you. You've adapted quickly, Alara. The plains respect that." Alara's lips curved into a small smile. "We've adapted together." Jace nodded, his gaze sweeping across the horizon. "The plains are challenging, but they also teach, and we've learned a lot together." The next day, the settlement moved as one. Teams followed the path indicated by the crystalline formations, moving cautiously but with growing confidence. Jace guided the plains hopper herders, showing them how to use subtle signals and rhythms to guide the animals safely. Alara coordinated the agricultural and engineering teams, ensuring water channels, soil preparation, and shelter expansions followed the map revealed by the energy signals. The first challenge came sooner than expected. A deep valley previously unnoticed blocked the planned route. The energy signals pulsed faintly from the formations along its edge, suggesting a safe crossing, but it required ingenuity to follow. Jace knelt, studying the formations. "We can't go straight down. The slope is too unstable, but if we follow these energy patterns and place temporary supports, the animals and people can cross safely." Alara added, "We'll need teamwork, engineers to set the supports, herders to guide the hoppers, and coordinators to direct the people. If we move together, it will work." Hours passed, but slowly, carefully, the teams built the temporary supports and guided the herd across the valley. The plains hoppers moved cautiously, responding to Jace's signals and Alara's coordination. The people of Red Haven followed, trusting in the guidance of the signals and the leadership of the two pioneers. By sunset, The valley had been crossed, and the herd was safe on the other side. The settlement cheered quietly, not for a battle won, but for survival, ingenuity, and cooperation. Jace and Alara stood together, watching the plains shimmer under the twin moons. "We did it," Alara said softly. "We really did it." Jace smiled, placing a hand on hers. "The plains taught us, and we listened. That's what matters." The next days were filled with similar work. They discovered hidden water sources, fertile soil patches, and natural corridors for livestock movement. Each discovery strengthened the settlement, and each success strengthened the bond between Jace and Alara. They laughed together when a plains hopper stubbornly refused to move, shared quiet meals discussing observations, and planned improvements late into the evenings. The townspeople began to see the changes too. Paths that were once treacherous became navigable. Crops grew faster in the newly discovered soil. Water flowed steadily through new channels. The settlement's prosperity increased, not through force or conquest, but through understanding, planning, and cooperation. One evening, after a long day, Jace and Alara walked to a high ridge overlooking Red Haven. The twin moons cast silver light over the settlement, reflecting off the water domes and the shimmering plains. "It's remarkable," Alara said. "The settlement, the plains, everything feels alive, connected." Jace nodded. "And it is. We're part of it now. Part of the land, the animals, and the people. All of it works together if we pay attention." Alara leaned slightly against him. "I never thought I could feel so calm here, so connected." Jace's eyes softened. "That's what trust and understanding do. We've earned it. Both of us." The bond between them had grown beyond mere partnership. They were becoming a team, not just in leadership but in life. Their first kiss on the plains had been the beginning of something quiet, yet powerful, a connection built on respect, shared effort, and mutual understanding. As the days passed, the settlement continued to thrive. Jace and Alara worked tirelessly, but they also took moments to pause and appreciate their accomplishments. One afternoon, after ensuring the hoppers were settled in a new grazing area, they sat on a small hill overlooking the plains. "You know," Alara said, watching the golden grasses sway, "I never imagined I would be happy in a place like this. The plains, the settlement, it's challenging, yes, but it's alive and I feel alive too." Jace nodded, eyes on the horizon. "I feel the same. The land, the people, it's changed me." Alara looked at him, her eyes softening. "And it's just the beginning." That evening, as the twin moons rose and cast silver light across the plains, the signals pulsed faintly once more from the distant crystalline formations. Jace and Alara knew that the plains still held secrets, challenges, and lessons. But for the first time, the settlement was ready. Humanity, with its intelligence, patience, and cooperation, had learned to listen and adapt. Inside the settlement, people moved efficiently, working together, inspired by the successes of Jace and Alara. There was laughter, discussion, and a quiet pride in what they had achieved. The silent plains, once seen as harsh and unforgiving, were now a source of guidance, connection, and hope. Jace and Alara walked back to the edge of the settlement together, hands brushing, smiles shared in quiet acknowledgement. The air smelled of fresh water, fertile soil, and the faint scent of the plains themselves. They paused, watching the horizon shimmer under the moons. "Tomorrow," Jace said, "we explore more, learn more, and keep the settlement growing." Alara nodded. "And together, we'll face whatever comes next." The silent plains stretched endlessly, golden and silver under the twin moons. The herds of plains hoppers grazed quietly, the wind whispered through the grass, and Red Haven thrived in harmony with its land. Humanity's ingenuity, patience, and cooperation had brought them this far, and Jace and Alara knew that even greater discoveries awaited, hidden in the silent rhythms of the planet. As they stood hand in hand, a sense of peace and purpose settled over them. The plains were alive, the settlement was safe, and humanity's ingenuity had been proven once more. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but together they were ready. The twin moons reflected in their eyes as they shared a quiet smile. Their partnership, their trust, and their love had grown alongside the settlement. And as the silent plain stretched endlessly before them, they understood something fundamental. The future was not something to fear, but something to create together. The twin suns of Novaterra rose slowly over Red Haven, painting the silent plains in soft gold and amber. A gentle wind stirred the tall grasses, carrying their whispers across the settlement. Jace Calder stood at the edge of the town, watching the plains shimmer under the morning light. Beside him, Alara Finn adjusted her sleeves, her eyes scanning the horizon, alert and thoughtful. "This is it," Jace said softly. "Today we see if all we've learned, all we've done is enough." Alara nodded, her auburn hair catching the sunlight. "The plains have guided us so far, and we've learned from them. Now it's our turn to act wisely." The settlement had prepared for days. Guided by the crystalline formations and the signals pulsing across the plains, teams had mapped new water channels, constructed safe routes for the herds, and fortified the settlement against natural challenges. Today, however, the plains themselves would test them, one final lesson to ensure humanity's survival and understanding of this world. The first sign came as a subtle vibration beneath the ground. Jace and Alara paused, sensing it. The plains hoppers stopped grazing, their ears twitching, eyes wide and alert. The wind shifted, carrying a low hum that seemed to come from the very soil itself. "Alara," Jace said, his voice steady but urgent, "we need to follow the signals exactly. Every pulse, every rhythm, it's the key." Alara nodded, her fingers brushing his for a brief, reassuring touch. Together, they moved across the plains, the settlement's teams close behind. Each pulse from the crystalline formations guided them forward, showing safe paths through areas that had once been dangerous. Hidden sinkholes, unstable soil, and sudden cliffs now clearly marked by faint energy patterns. Jace guided the plains hoppers, his hands and subtle whistles directing their movements. Alara coordinated the human teams, ensuring every step matched the signals and the patterns laid out by the land itself. Hours passed, the suns climbing higher. The plains seemed alive in a way they had never experienced. Energy pulsed through the ground, through the grasses, and even through the wind. The final test was near, and the plains were revealing it slowly, carefully, as if judging humanity's worthiness. At midday, they reached a vast expanse where the grasses shimmered silver and gold in alternating patterns. Crystalline formations jutted from the ground, forming a labyrinth of light and sound. The signals were stronger here, pulsating rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. "This is the final path," Jace said, kneeling to study the patterns. "We need perfect coordination. One misstep could set us off course." Alara's eyes were bright with determination. "We can do it, all of us, together." The teams moved forward, weaving carefully through the labyrinth. Every pulse guided their steps, every rhythm synchronized with their breathing and movement. The plains hoppers followed Jace's subtle signals, their large bodies moving gracefully and calmly through the shimmering maze. The humans followed Alara's instructions, adjusting paths, coordinating positions, and checking the signals continuously. Time seemed to stretch, but the focus never wavered. Jace and Alara worked as one, anticipating each challenge and responding with calm efficiency. Slowly, deliberately, the teams reached the center of the labyrinth, a small plateau where a pool of crystal-clear water sparkled under the suns. The signals pulsed in a steady rhythm, as if acknowledging the settlement's success. Alara knelt beside the water, cupping some in her hands. "It's perfect, fresh, clean, and enough for everyone." Jace stood, surveying the plains stretching endlessly beyond the plateau. "The settlement can thrive here. The plains have given us everything we need: water, soil, safe paths, and guidance. And we've learned to listen." The teams cheered softly, a quiet celebration of accomplishment and understanding. This was not a battle won through force, but through cooperation, patience, and ingenuity. Humanity had passed the final test of the Silent Plains. As the twin sons began their descent, Jace and Alara walked to the edge of the plateau, overlooking the plains. The wind tugged gently at their coats, and the grasses shimmered like waves of gold and silver. "You know," Alara said softly, leaning slightly against him, "I never imagined I would feel this connected, to the plains, to the settlement, and to you." Jace's dark eyes softened. "Neither did I, but it feels right. The plains, the people, us, it all fits together now." Alara's fingers brushed his. "Together then, always." Jace nodded, a rare smile on his lips. "Always." They stood in silence for a moment, letting the wind carry their thoughts across the endless horizon. The plains had been harsh, unforgiving, and mysterious, yet they had also been a teacher, guiding humanity to survive and thrive. And Jace and Alara had learned the ultimate lesson. Strength, wisdom, and survival were not about force. They were about observation, cooperation, and trust. As the sun set and the twin moons rose, the settlement below began moving toward the plateau. Teams guided the plains hoppers along safe paths, bringing new supplies, constructing shelters, and ensuring the water from the central pool reached everyone. The settlement thrived, not through domination of the land, but through harmony with it. Alara watched the settlement bustle with life. "We did it," she said softly. "Red Haven will flourish, and we did our part." Jace looked at her, his eyes reflecting the moon's light. "We did more than survive. We learned, we grew, and together we led." The two of them stood at the edge of the plateau, the plains stretching endlessly before them. The wind whispered through the grasses, carrying the faint hum of energy from the crystalline formations. It was as if the planet itself acknowledged their efforts, rewarding humanity's patience, ingenuity, and respect. Alara turned to Jace, her eyes bright. "Do you ever think that the plains have more lessons for us, more secrets we've yet to discover?" Jace smiled faintly. "I know they do, and we'll face them, together." As night fell, the moons cast silver light over the plateau and the plains below. The settlement glimmered with life, a testament to humanity's ingenuity and perseverance. The plains hoppers grazed calmly, guided by rhythms and signals, their movements synchronized with the patterns of the land. The crystalline formations pulsed softly, a reminder that the world was alive and humanity had learned to listen. Jace and Alara sat together on a small ridge, watching the stars twinkle above. "You know," Jace said, "I thought I liked solitude, but this feels better. Working, learning, surviving with someone you trust." Alara smiled, leaning into him. "I feel the same. We've learned so much, about the plains, about the settlement, about each other." Jace took her hand, holding it gently. "Then let's promise something. No matter what comes next, we face it together. The plains, the settlement, everything." Alara nodded, her smile soft and full of warmth. Together, they watched the moons rise over the endless plains, silver and gold reflecting across the grasses. The plains were alive, full of energy and secrets, but humanity had proven its worth, not through force, but through patience, understanding, and cooperation. The settlement thrived below, safe and prepared, a symbol of what humans could achieve when they worked together and respected the world around them. The plains were no longer a threat. They were a guide, a teacher, and a partner. And for Jace and Alara, the Silent Plains had given them more than survival. They had given them trust, partnership, and the beginnings of a love built on respect, understanding, and shared purpose. As the twin moons reflected in their eyes, they shared a quiet smile and a gentle kiss, a kiss of completion, of gratitude, and of hope. The Silent Plains had been tamed not by force, but by ingenuity, patience, and humanity's enduring spirit. The wind whispered across the grasses, carrying a soft melody of life, growth, and endless possibilities. And Jace and Alara, hand in hand, knew that whatever challenges came next, they would face them together, guided by the lessons of the silent plains and the strength of their bond. The twin moons hung low over Novaterra, silver light spilling across the shimmering grasses. And in the quiet, alive expanse of the silent plains, humanity had proven itself, resilient, clever, and united. Jace and Alara stood together, eyes on the horizon, hearts aligned with the rhythms of the world. The silent plains stretched endlessly, golden and silver, alive and full of promise. And in that moment, under the twin moons and whispering winds, a brooding cowboy and a sheriff's widow knew something simple and true. The future belonged to those who listened, learned, and loved together.